So, Richard, you put forward the case for coatings as being an important component in terms of emission saving and fuel saving. How is hull roughness monitored and reported?
Hull roughness is very important for a coating. The smoothness of the vessel is critical as in terms of fuel savings. As regards monitoring the hull roughness, typically at a retrofit or a dry docking, there are laser profile gauges which can run along the surface. Typically you take at least 100 measurements over the whole hull. It's also the roughness is not just dependent on the coating. There's other things like rust, corrosion, weld seams and stuff can all affect the roughness. But the idea of doing a really comprehensive hull roughness survey at the docking is to get a representative sample statistically for the hull. And then the idea is you can measure that after 2 years typically if the vessel comes back into dock and see how the roughness has changed. Depending on the quality of the coating, that affects the roughness. So a high quality coating, the roughness will be kept minimal increase, whereas the lower grade coatings you will get a lot of hull roughness increase, which can affect the performance of the ship.
Now, we live in an age of self-driving cars, autonomous ships. Isn't it time we saw self-cleaning coatings?
It is, but it's what you're dealing with is a living ocean. So it's all the fouling we see, the barnacles, the weed, the slime, it's all living. So it's very hard to get a coating which is going to self-clean in all regions. So, for instance, you may have a coating which could self-clean really well, say in European waters, but then off the coast of Singapore it may not self-clean. So it is an ultimate challenge for all paint manufacturers, but it's a very difficult challenge because even the slime and barnacles, they're not daft, they're quite clever where they settle on the surface. So you may develop a coating which, like I say, keeps it clean in a certain region. The next region, they're probably clever and they can adapt. So ultimately it is, yes, it is the desire to have a self-cleaning, if you like, a fouling-free coating. But I think the technology may have to move from a pure kind of paint to actually get there. I mentioned about the UV lights. Potentially these are the technologies which we've started working on. They may give the true answer to something like that, I think.
What about graphene being used in future corrosion protection?
Yeah, I mean, graphene's it's one of the hardest materials known. I think there's a balance between the integrity of a coating on a hull to give the desired corrosion protection, but also to keep the vessel clean, so to keep the fouling off. So definitely hard coatings, as they call scrubbable coatings, have been looked at, but also they have to have the balance of keeping the hull clean of fouling. So graphene, yeah, it is a potential material, but I think things would have to be done to make it suitable for a hull coating in the water as well.
Now, of course, we've heard a lot about scrubbers and discharge of wastewater into the sea, and the suggestion that there's a need for special reinforced coatings to cope with what we're actually discharging into the sea. It puts a slightly different spin on things, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, it's another challenge for coatings manufacturers. I think some coatings, like I say, can withstand a lot of chemicals and heat, for instance, which discharge such as this. So I think it depends on, I think the investment probably the ship owner is prepared to do. So it is a challenge for coatings, but we can overcome them. We're paint manufacturers, we work on all sorts of innovations, and so we have to adapt quickly to what the industry wants, and I'm sure we will.
The last question, Richard, is you've been with us for the last couple of days. How have you found the event?
I found it really, really engaging. A lot of ship owners. I think what was really good is, I think with a lot of marine industries, a lot of kind of legislations come through, but I think everybody kind of seems to sometimes put whatever company and other issues they have and kind of pull together, which is really good. It's really pleasing on the panel, the amount of questions people were getting, which I think were well thought out of, and gives a really good discussion. So I think overall, yeah, very excellent event.
Richard, thank you very much indeed.
Okay, thank you very much.